high-definition television.
We see it frequently. People convicted of abuse or neglect of an animal sentenced to little more than a slap on the wrist.
And that really has a lot of people outraged. Tonight in the FOX10 News special report, Paige Malone exposes what some call the weakest animal cruelty laws in the nation.
If the state of Alabama had a report card, many animal activists say it would show all F's for protecting our animals and punishing those who abuse them. Bo and Luke were left to die. One of them was found with his owner's name still around his neck.
I couldn't believe they were alive, and you could see the entire skeletal process of their whole body. There was nothing there, it was just bones.
Little Mama, she's come a long way from the 20-pound puppy found tied up with a computer cord. Her ears were cut back with scissors and her teeth ground down.
And I sat in the middle of the shelter floor and just cried with her.
And then there was Bella. Before being rescued, her life was confined to a 5-foot radius.
I just don't understand people. I mean, it's a matter of just calling out to us.
These are the victims of animal cruelty. And here are the faces of the accused.
Daniel placing you on the list for cruelty to animals.
In most cases, facing only misdemeanor charges, if they're charged at all. Do the punishments fit the crime?
It takes everything in my being sometimes to keep from screaming.
Robbie Fitzgerald founded the Safe Haven Animal Kennel, also known as The Shack. She says the rescue shelters are all at capacity.
We get probably 10 a month in that are emaciated, and sometimes they have 10 a day of reports of abuse.
There is one law on the books in Alabama where a felony charge applies. It started with one puppy, 7 weeks old at the time, named Gucci.
I said often, if he were human, he'd be the governor. He could work a crowd.
Gucci was strung up from a tree, beaten and set on fire. The juveniles convicted were given community service. The adult served 3 weeks in jail. The case moved Gucci's eventual owner, Doug James, to take action. James began pushing for a law that would make acts like this felonies.
The bill was kind of laughed out of the legislature. It was just, nobody does that.
6 years later, the bill became law. But since the passage of Gucci's law 12 years ago, nothing else has been done to protect animals from other forms of cruelty, and the crimes have continued. In Summerdale, authorities say more than 200 dogs, cats, and horses were left to die.
There was a Chihuahua in there, and the Chihuahua was eating the terrier trying to stay alive.
The women police say are responsible are out on $3,000 bond. Their case has been handed over to a grand jury.
In Alabama and the southern states, this is just like an epidemic.
Now, if you're not a pet owner or just don't really care about animals, think about this. There's often a third party involved in these cases, one that everyone cares about: children.
It's a power thing they want over those spouses, or over those children, over those animals. And anger, it's an unresolved anger. It just flares up, and suddenly a child's been hurt or an animal's been hurt, and they don't give it much thought.
Pat Guyton cites 3 nationally accredited studies. The first shows that a person who abuses an animal is 5 times more likely to abuse a child. The second looked at battered women in children's shelters. It found that in 90% of the cases, there was animal abuse or neglect. And the third shows people who abuse children are 5 times more likely to abuse an animal.
It's happening in our community. It happens right here that people are being cruel to animals. And that those people who are being cruel to animals are also most likely to be cruel to children or other adults in the home. The results of crimes like this should be stiffer than just a slap on the wrist for animal abuse. And so that people will be removed from society for abusing animals and hurting animals.
Linda Dooley agrees. She's pushing a bill designed to impose harsher penalties for animal cruelty and neglect.
In 2012, we're still having to put tools in the hands of the judges and in the hands of the prosecutors to say we're not going to allow animal abuse. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. It really is. We should have been further along.
The bill would allow more strict punishments for animal cruelty. It would also add an aggravated animal cruelty component. Those convicted under this provision would face a felony.
We owe it to them to protect them, to go after the people that are not protecting them.
Alabama Representative Joe Faust introduced the bill this past session. It didn't make it out of committee.
I don't think there'd be a one up there that doesn't like animals and would feel the same way that I do about animal cruelty.
It's just a matter of letting them know that this bill even exists.
Yeah.
But I think there's widespread in the legislature, I think there's support for it, for changing things.
Then why haven't things changed? Representative Steve McMillan says it's the system.
The system is set up to kill legislation, not pass legislation.
Faust and Dooley will be back in Montgomery next year and say they will get this bill through. In the meantime, the abuse and neglect continues.
One can judge a society by the way it treats its animals.
There's probably not a day goes by that I don't cry over this.
Now, Representative McMillan says there's a way you can help. It takes public support, and we're talking persistent public support to get a bill through the legislature. Now, if you want something changed, start making calls and writing to lawmakers, not only your local representatives, but those across the state. Now, to help you out, we posted a link to their contact information on our website. There you'll also find information on Florida animal welfare laws.